Blackout conditions have been consecutive for months, for years. Now at the point where the South African Reserve Bank is considering this year to be 0.3% growth as opposed to 1.1%. Why should foreign investors invest in a country like South Africa, considering how prolonged these issues have been going on?
Yeah, I think the good thing about a crisis is that it catalyzes action. And we have seen a lot of action in terms of adding additional capacity to the grid. We've seen a lot of money and effort being thrown at improving the state of our existing generation fleet. So for 2023, we anticipate a tough year when it comes to load shedding. But after that, we should see the first of the 9,000 or so megawatts of new private generation capacity being added to the grid, and approximately 4,500 megawatts of capacity being added through various efforts going on at Eskom. So by then, I believe that we should see a significant improvement in our energy security and a substantial reduction in the amount of load shedding.
And yet we're hearing, Andre, from the finance minister saying that load shedding is still going to be a thing of the future. Considering there has been money poured into this company, there has been attempts to fix some of these plants. I mean, why hasn't the situation been able to turn around, in your opinion, in the time that you've been serving as CEO?
I think if you look at three things that you need to address the capacity shortfall, you need time, you need money, and you need skills. In your introduction, you referenced the fact that we've got significant outstanding debt. Hopefully, this will now be resolved by an announcement by the Minister of Finance in his upcoming budget speech that there will be a substantial debt relief for Eskom. That will be important to put us in a sound financial footing. If you don't have money, you can't fix your plant. You need skill. I think it's widely acknowledged that Eskom has had substantial skills challenges. We have opened the doors to recruiting back some of the skills that we've lost over the years. So hopefully that will start playing a significant role in helping us to run our plants better. We're also looking at potentially outsourcing some of the operations of our plants so that we can bring in skills that we simply don't have anymore. And then the last thing you need is you need the headroom to take units off to perform the outages that are necessary to keep the plant stable and reliable. And due to a lack of capacity, which Eskom's been calling for, bearing in mind that Eskom is not able by law to build new capacity without the consent of government, which has not been forthcoming, we need additional capacity. And we've been calling for 4 to 6 gigawatts of new capacity to be added consistently for the past 3 years. And only belatedly now have the floodgates been opened to private sector investment in this regard. And there's a lot of it coming, and that will make a massive contribution to resolving the issue.
And Andre, I also have to ask you, I mean, as we mentioned, you're the outgoing CEO. There will be, I believe it's the 15th CEO for Eskom coming in. Do you think it is one sole person that can actually turn this company around? Does it need to be a complete restructuring at the top? What's your take? How difficult do you anticipate it to be to find an executive, especially considering the challenges that you've had to endure both professionally and personally?
It certainly is a tough job. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted. I think what we need to do, and increasingly we are now seeing moves in that direction by the government, is to enable Eskom to operate as a 24/7 industrial operation without some of the bureaucratic encumbrances that we've suffered in terms of procurement regulations, in terms of the skills that we're able to recruit, in terms of how we have to account to various oversight bodies, which of course takes up an enormous amount of time from the executive team. And that's time that we don't have to spend on actually turning around the business. So I think that there's a realization that management in particular have to be given a freer hand, and that they can then do the job without having both hands tied behind their back by bureaucratic red tape.
Well, and where does corruption fit into this? Because you have been outspoken about this as well. I mean, how does the next CEO come in and actually turn around some of the issues that you've complained about and others?
Yeah, it's quite ironic that since I announced my resignation, we've seen significant moves by law enforcement to go into Eskom. We've had 25 arrests, pretty much at lower levels in the organized crime cartels that we know are operating in Eskom. We need to do a lot more. We are experiencing significant internal and external resistance in our attempts to head off corruption by improving controls over inventory, by improving controls over expenditure, by improving controls over coal quality. Now, these are basics that need to be in place, but certainly internally in Eskom, there's been significant resistance to implementing these controls for reasons that you can well imagine relate to corruption itself. So we really hope, or I really hope, that there will be a significant step up, first of all, in intelligence gathering, where some of our intelligence agencies have been missing in action. And then we also need to see arrests and successful prosecutions, not only of the foot soldiers, but also of those who head up these cartels.
Well, and let's also talk. I mean, you brought up the fact that the government is still in negotiations about taking over some of the debt that Eskom has accrued at this point in time. You've talked about some of the challenges internally. I mean, but at the same time, we're seeing bonds surge. I mean, I wonder, do you think investors are getting a little too ahead of themselves, considering all of the headwinds that still need to be tackled until there's any sort of resolution at this point?
No, I think what you're seeing is that investors are gaining increasing confidence that there is, in fact, now a turnaround plan, that the plan is being implemented, that we are definitely expecting a firm commitment to debt relief from the Minister of Finance. That will make an enormous difference to the risk profile of Eskom's borrowing. And I think in anticipation of that announcement, the quantum of which will only be announced by the minister during his budget speech, we can definitely expect that there will be a new look at the risk rating that is attributed to Eskom and the potential risk of a default.
But it's not definitive yet. I mean, what are the steps that Eskom needs to take in order for the government to step in and actually provide some relief?
So we need, first of all, cost-reflective tariffs. The tariffs that are regulated by the National Energy Regulator of South Africa still are below cost-reflective levels. So with other words, we lose money on every kilowatt hour of electricity that we sell. That clearly is not sustainable. If debt relief is not accompanied by reform to the tariff, then, of course, we will be back with our begging bowl at the National Treasury's door in 3 to 5 years' time. So we've got to address the tariffs. We've also got to restructure the company to allow more private sector generation to be added to the grid more quickly. And in this instance, the unbundling of Eskom is an absolutely key effort. We've made great strides from an Eskom perspective. We've done everything that we possibly can. But we now need, for example, the shareholder, which is the government, to appoint a board. We need the appropriate legislation, licenses, and so forth to be awarded to the new National Transmission Company of South Africa. And once that's done, we can legally separate the business, we can transfer the assets and set up an independent market operator. And that, we believe, will be the catalyst to unlocking even more private investment in generation.
And Andre, just to wrap it up, I mean, we're speaking to you as we mentioned, you're the outgoing CEO at a time where the government's considering declaring a national state of disaster because of the power cuts. There's been 13 consecutive months of power outages. I mean, when you reflect on your time as CEO, what is it that you are proud of accomplishing? What are you walking away from proud that you've been able to accomplish during your time as CEO?
I think if you look at our headcounts come down from 46 to 40,000 without any forced retrenchments and without any major strikes attributable to headcount reduction. I think from a strategic perspective, putting South Africa irrevocably on the road to green energy is probably the one that will be the longest lasting of my contributions to Eskom. I think, lastly, just the efforts that I've made in order to highlight some of the constraints and the impossibility of the task, I think it has now catalyzed the president to the point where he is considering declaring a state of disaster, clearly indicating that the job that I was asked to do is not possible without significant powers being added to allow Eskom to start on its road to recovery.